communities. So that means our agenda, as Congresswoman talked about, so much has happened in 2 years. So it makes our work a little bit harder, but we're determined to make sure that we save our democracy from peril. And so what we're going to do at this time, my role is to facilitate with Congresswoman as long as she can be with us and move forward and talk about the policy priorities. What are we going to be doing today and part of the day tomorrow on the House side today and part of the day tomorrow on the Senate side, and what we'll be doing for those days following as the Black Women's Roundtable. We will be strategizing and organizing. We're getting ready for 2020. And we're also getting ready for 2019 because there's elections every year, last I checked. And so we're here to focus on issues, and I'll just do the top line and then move to bring Congresswoman up here. So we're here to deal with the federal budget. We're here to protect to challenge our elected officials and demand that they protect the safety net. And that includes Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, affordable health care, and reducing the cost of subscription drugs. We're here to deal with civil rights. So we're talking about things like civil rights and voting rights, criminal justice reform that needs to continue to be reformed, policing reform, hate crimes and eradication of violence against women and girls. We're dealing with voting rights reform and Census 2020 to make sure that our voting rights are restored in this country. We thank the House for doing what they did already. The Senate needs to do its job and make sure that this thing gets done. Census 2020 needs to get fully funded. Economic justice. And a part of that with our agenda is about paid leave, equal pay, and workers' rights. The other is economic opportunity, affordable housing, home ownership, and opportunity zones and gentrification. Social justice, things like immigration reform that must be done. And lastly, education. We must invest in our public schools and public education and making sure that we keep our historically Black colleges and universities strong. That is the agenda of the Black Women's Roundtable. We have national and state partners who will follow the Congresswoman to just go a little deeper about what we're discussing here over these next two days with our Congress people and their staff. And we now bring Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman. And thank you again, Congresswoman Bass, for a host. Oh, and I didn't see Congresswoman saying that. And we'll move with our Congresswomen because we know y'all have votes. Okay?
It's an absolute honor to be standing here with such powerful Black women who've dedicated their lives, their energy, and their resources to the issues that are most important to us as a community. I greet you on behalf of the Congressional Caucus on Black Women and Girls and my co-chairs, Robin Kelly from Illinois and Yvette Clark from New York. You know, women still face these burdens, this glass ceiling, this lack of access to various issues from adequate health care to economic opportunity. Women still are confronting the discrimination that represents the intersectionality of being Black and being female. And our coming together has reminded not only the people around here, but this entire country, that Black women are standing up for right versus wrong. Whatever the issue is, even if it doesn't specifically address us, if it is wrong, we stand up for it. We stand up for equality for everyone, including the LGBTQ community. We stand up for voting rights and the reenfranchisement of individuals who've paid their debt to society. We stand up together for a comprehensive social justice and criminal justice reform. And we have communicated clearly to this country that every issue is a woman's issue. And that when it comes time to show up, to demonstrate where we stand on the issues, we will be there, we will pull that lever, but even before pulling that lever, we will take our feet and put them on the concrete and walk and march and holler and talk on the phone and talk through social media to let everyone know that this is the time of accountability. And this accountability is to us. So I am delighted to be here today. I look forward to working with Karen Bass, who's an incredible leader of our Congressional Black Caucus, with the Black Caucus and with the Congressional Caucus on Black Women, and with the various task forces that you will see that are going to emerge in the very near future that address the inequities that we experience every single solitary day. That's why we're here. We're here to make a difference. We're here to be relevant. We're here to be a voice where a voice cannot otherwise be heard. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you.
I want to say good morning to everyone. I'm Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence from Michigan, and I am also the co-chair of the Women's Caucus for the 116th Congress. As a woman standing here, I want you all to just reflect on a moment that we just saw where a black woman was used as a prop. We are not a prop. We are the fiber of this country. When you start talking about issues that are important to America, black women rise to the top. We will be celebrating our 100th year of having the right to vote as women. And I'm proud to say I'm a Delta woman. Black women marched. Black women marched with the white women to say in this country, we should have the right to vote. And that was only 100 years ago. We are fighting to close the wage gap. But when you talk about the wage gap, who has the biggest gap? Black women. When you talk about paid family leave, when you talk about common sense gun control, how many mothers and children have cried because we refuse to stand up and address that crisis? I want you to know that when we talk about poverty in America, I sit on appropriations. And if you want to know what someone believes and who they are, follow their money. This country has said that we do not want people in poverty and that we will allocate funds to eliminate poverty. I will tell you, the largest demographic of poverty in America are women with children. Women with children. Because when you have the responsibility of caring for a child, your obligations to your budget is twice that of a man. Lastly, I want to talk about how much we have at stake. All of us, whoever you are, owe a debt to a woman. And I stand here as a black woman that knowing that the generational love and support of black women has created an opportunity for me. We have these young women standing here. They cannot do it alone. Black women have stood up and fought for everyone. But we are committed to ensuring that our children, that our elders, that the women who have the blessing of being kissed with this brown skin from God, that we have the quality of life, that we have the resources, that we get our education. But most of all, I'm standing here today that we will stand up and fight. The woman standing on top of this building has a reap in one hand and a sword in the other. She was cast by a slave to stand there. This building was built by slaves. We are people who will not sit down. And black women, we lead. We are a voting force. You will hear us. And these children, these young women will say, they did it right. I'm standing on their shoulders. I'm going to take us another step further. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you again, Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence. And now we hear from Congresswoman Barbara Lee from the great state of California.
Thank you very much. Black women lead.
Yes.
Black women lead.
Yes.
Let me say, Melanie, first, thank you so much for your tremendous leadership and for all of you for being here, staying woke, and really making sure that all of the legislation and the policies that we are championing here on Capitol Hill are driven by you, are driven by black women, our perspective, our issues, our history, our concerns, our trials, our tribulations, our victories. That's what we're about, making sure that the public policy of this country, all of our public policies reflect our perspective and our input. Let me thank you so much for, again, being here, but also just let me mention, a couple of the issues in addition to what my sister colleagues have talked about. we've got to talk about the mortality rates of African American women and infant mortality and the criminalization of our girls in school and STEM education for our young girls. You know, all of the issues that we have been fighting for so many years. Now is our time. Our time has come to make to repair, first of all, the damage, and then to move forward. I am the co-chair of the Steering and Policy Committee. And Melanie, I want to thank you. I want to thank all of you because this is the first time we've had an African American woman in leadership.
Yes.
And it's because of you we got there. But let me tell you, the Congress has been meeting since 1789, and when I was elected in 1998, I was only the 20th African American woman ever elected to the House of Representatives. That's a shame and disgrace. Now, see us. You see us. We have elected so many phenomenal new young African American women. We've expanded our Congressional Black Caucus, and we're going to really move forward so that we never, ever, ever again are taken for granted in this House of Representatives and on Capitol Hill. Also, let me just mention to you the fact that this is, and I want to remind us all, the 400th year of the first slave ship coming to these shores. And in spite of the brutality and inhumanity of slavery, and still we have risen, and still we've risen. And so your presence here today during this summit really reminds the country that it's African American women who are going to help regain the soul of America. And I know that your voices are being heard loud and clear because we see the shift, we see the change, we see so many black women running and winning for public office at all levels. And it's because of you that we're able to do this. So I just want to say, in honor of my mentor, who was the first African American woman elected to Congress from Brooklyn, New York, the first African American who ran for president, who paved the way for Barack Obama, the first woman who ran for president, the Honorable Shirley Chisholm, who was my friend and my mentor. She reminded us that we had to if we didn't have a seat at the table, to bring our folding chairs. Yes. Remember that? But we have brought our chairs and we are here to stay. And so thank you again so much, Melanie, for being here. And let me just remind you once again, know your power. Black women lead and will continue to lead this country out of this challenged mess that we have found ourselves in now as a result of this administration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Congresswoman. And we'll move right into, Cassandra Wilson is not here yet. Oh, okay, great. All right. We're going to move right along. Cleola Brown was not able to be with us due to travel, but our two partners, Cleola Brown, we bring her spirit with us from President A. Philip Randolph Institute, and then Cassandra Welchland, co-convener and lead organizer of the Mississippi Black Women's Roundtable, will give us just a brief statement about why we are concerned about protecting the safety net and affordable health care and reducing prescription drugs as part of the federal budget. Cassandra.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Cassandra Welchland from the great state of Mississippi. I am a daughter of the South. On January 27th, after finishing up her shift at McDonald's, Shatiria Sharday Shoemaker stopped over to a family member's home in rural Chickasaw County, Mississippi. While sitting on the bed, she gasped for air, stood up, opened the bedroom door, and reports say she collapsed. Shoemaker was pregnant with her second child and was only 8 minutes away from the rural hospital in Houston, Mississippi, when she dialed 911, but 911 did not come. They closed that rural hospital in 2014. They closed the emergency room. The only ambulance in the county that night was a half hour away. Later that night, she was pronounced dead. Why? She had an asthma attack.
An asthma attack where she used inhalers, she took pills, she slept with a mask connected to a special breathing machine. Why did that hospital ER room close in rural Mississippi where so many people depended on it? Why? Because they lost more than $2 million in 1 year because people could not pay their medical bills and they lost physicians. That's criminal. It's criminal. It's criminal. She left behind her 2-year-old daughter. That 2-year-old daughter now has to be raised without a mother who would never see her go on her first date, would not see her get dressed for prom, and would not see her walk across the stage for her 12th grade graduation. We could do better as a country in making sure that safety net programs like Medicaid, like Medicare, can fund programs and fund hospitals in rural communities across this country. It's not unique to Mississippi, but it is going across the country. We don't need another Shateria to die in this country. We need Congress to pass and fund the budget so that these kind of safety net programs that so many of our communities need can be funded so that we can have child care, we can have Medicaid, we can have Medicare, we can protect SNAP, because we know that so many of these programs undergird our local communities. So Congress, on this day, in this Congress, we need you to make sure that your budget reflects the lives of our communities in rural America in this country so that we won't lose another Shateria Shoemaker. We want her life to be honored as so many, and we're calling on this Congress to protect this budget and protect these safety net programs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And we're going to come up in the groups and then ask everyone to please adhere to your 1 to 2 minutes so they won't put us off of this grounds, right? Next, we will hear on civil rights, this first group of civil rights leaders around criminal justice, policing hate crimes, and eradicating violence against women. I'm going to acknowledge Ebony Riley, Washington Bureau Chief from National Action Network, who could not be here, but I think she has someone here in spirit. Well, she's not speaking, but she's here representing, knowing that they fight for those issues with the leadership, under the leadership of Reverend Sharpton every day. But we do also have the Honorable Stephanie Moore, convener of Kalamazoo, Michigan Black Women's Roundtable, who's also a county commissioner in the county of Kalamazoo, Michigan, and Alexandria Glaze, Operations and Events Manager for National Black Justice Coalition. Following them, we will hear from our leaders from around voting rights reform and Census 2020. We have Kristen Clark, my colleague here, President and Executive Director from the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. Lisa Sylar Barrett, Senior Policy Counsel, NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund. And we may be, and Henry Shelton. And with this being Women's History Month, I want to thank our brothers for coming out. Because we're here in history. Black Women's Roundtable was the first organization that I'm aware of that decided that I think Women's History Month is about us too. So we started this 8 years ago, coming on the Hill, saying we're part of, ain't I a woman, right? And so we'll hear also from Hillary Shelton, Senior Vice President for Advocacy and Policy, Director, Washington Bureau, NAACP, in that order. Starting with Stephanie Moore.
Thank you, Melanie. Out of all of the topics that I could speak about, police brutality, which I now call justice malpractice, continues to be one of the most traumatizing and outright frustrating issues I can speak of. In 2019, close to 2,000 police killings occurred, with a quarter of them being black victims. Out of the black victims, majority were unarmed at the time of their killing, Statistics go on to say that justice malpractice or police brutality can also occur anytime police use excessive force or violence over individual populations in order to reinforce a systemic form of control. One of those systemic forces of control is racism. Without going into a death history lesson, we can recall the black and white images of police in the South enforcing unjust laws while using batons, dogs, tear gas, and water to force black people physically into submission, while also forcing us mentally and emotionally into degradation. Police throughout various parts of America have used the blue uniforms as coverings and shields to protect them legally while they carry out some of the most heinous of crimes. Most recently, we've witnessed countless incidents where police have sprayed more bullets into a car where a black gentleman slept, by forcing women to perform sexual acts and to obtain their freedom, to police chasing and gunning down unarmed individuals only to claim that that was reasonable fear. That is not a new normal. That is normal. And yet it's still unacceptable after all these years. And I find myself saying, like the songwriter Marvin Gaye, what is going on? He said, picket lines and picket signs don't punish me with brutality. Come on, talk to me so you can see what's going on. What's going on? We have too many police who are too busy shooting us and not talking to us. They're judging us and not protecting us, killing us and not serving us. So what is going on? First, I would like to say that we need to address union protectivism. Most police chiefs will tell you when it comes to disciplining and even terminating that they're protected by union laws. Second, we must seriously and strategically create social norms where bad policing and justice malpractice is not acceptable. And third, all politics is local. We must start like the Black Women's Roundtable from the state down to the local, organizing and empowering women to turn out and lead, to vote, and get others to vote. So yes, this is a call to action. Today we rise. Today we say no more to brutality. Today we shift our power.
I'm thrilled to be here. I'm on behalf of the National Black Justice Coalition. I want to say, in the spirit of Fannie Lou Hamer, who says, I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. It is about time that we do the work required to ensure Black women and girls remain at the forefront of conversations and actions designed to ensure our survival. The statistics on poverty, sexual violence, lack of access to quality and affordable health care, mistreatment and misrepresentation in media, unemployment, incarceration, among others, should remind everyone that the time to act to improve the lives of Black women and girls is upon us. In a world where Black trans women continue to die at disproportionate rates, and where Black women constitute half of the homicides against women in America, and are 3 to 4 more times likely to die from childbirth than white women, the time to act is now. Working in coalition with the Black Women's Roundtable, the National Black Justice Coalition is committed to ensuring that the rights and lives of our Black trans sisters are respected and protected. In a world where Black trans women have experienced sexual violence, and where Black trans women are almost 4 times more likely to experience police violence than the general population, the time to act to ensure equity and justice for all Black women and girls is now. Our call to action is gender justice. As we continue to engage in the work required to ensure the liberation of all Black women and girls, we must remember the words of Angela Davis, who warns us all, if they come for me in the morning, they will come for you in the night. The work of ensuring the collective liberation starts with appreciating that words matter, and we can strengthen the ties that bind our community by empathetically saying, when we say woman, we mean all women, and that includes Black, cis, trans, gender nonconforming, and queer women of girls. Violence against Black, trans, and gender nonconforming and girls are attacks against all Black people. And unless and until all Black people are free, none of us will truly be free. It is time to create a world where Black women and girls' magic is supported and uplifted, and we are thrilled to be a part of the conversation and ensuring that we all reach our full liberation.
We're going to bring in, we've been joined by Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee from the awesome state of Texas, because she's in it, who will bring us remarks.
Thank you so very much. Thank you to the chairwomen of chairwomen. We all join each other in being chairs, but the chairwoman of chairwoman, and that is Melanie Campbell, and the Black Women's Roundtable. The power is in the presence, the power is in the voice. And what you see here is generational, intergenerational women standing collectively together to indicate that it is our time. It has been our time. It is now an assertive time. I am here to join them in their asserting of the power. On the front page of the USA Today, indicating that it is us, it is we, it is our time for change. And I stand here with each and every one of you and one gentleman there in the back that understands his power. Two gentlemen in the back that understand the power of asserting the enormity of what we can do as change agents. So let me be very clear. This may be a press gathering, but I am saying to the women who understand the power that is standing here and that it is moving out beyond the boundaries of this august capital of the United States, that we are mobilizing through your efforts, Sister Melanie, women, African-American women across the nation and across the world. That is the power that we will assert now and in 2020. And so I am here today to focus, might I say to Ashley, let me say that I am moved, as I have as my senior level responsibility on the Criminal Justice Committee, to hold a hearing on these issues dealing with the killing of trans Black women and gender identity, because it has gone on too long. I have buried women in my district in Houston, Texas, a increasingly progressive city of great diversity, and silence is no longer accepted. And so I'm here today to say that we will go after issues that no one else has decided to engage in. There are advocacies, and we understand that, but we must take you to a level where it is recognized that the issues of Black women are important to be in the halls of Congress. I see that you've had my chair, Karen Bass, Barbara Lee, and others will be coming. It is our presence here, let it be very clear, that the issues of the Black Women Roundtable and all who are here, from civil rights to gun violence, to the issue of voting empowerment, certainly the issues of economic justice, economic opportunity, social justice, immigration, education. Yesterday we introduced the Equality Act. The day before we introduced the DREAM Act and the Promise, which deals with temporary protective status, which deals with many people, indeed from places of color like Liberia and the Caribbean. Only the push of African-American women will drive the social safety networks or nets to be in fruition. It is only your power. Let me speak for a moment on issues that are close to my heart that I've worked on for more than a decade. It's interesting that when I was on the Houston City Council, Texas at that time could not even understand gun safety legislation. They couldn't even fathom what you were talking about. It was the Second Amendment. When I offered this bill to hold parents responsible for children getting guns, because every time school was out, there was a rash of shootings because little Johnny or Kwame got the gun from underneath the mattress. And I said, I'm not taking your guns, parents, please. It might be putting it on the top shelf, but lock your guns up. And in the chamber of the city council came people I'd never seen before. People were dressed up in colonial outfits, playing flutes, talking about the Constitution was being attacked. And it was in my heart then that I could not tolerate children, little Black children, killing themselves, in this instance, innocently. And so that passion has continued, and we are in 2019 with a lack of anyone doing anything much about gun violence, because the colonial flutists wearing the colonial clothes, rather than standing on the Constitution of recognizing the due process of life, 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, they are fighting against this issue dealing with guns. And so it is, my state had the highest, 26th highest firearm homicide rate. 1,222 people were murdered, 3,353 people died, and most people would not know that because people are clamoring to go to west, to come to Texas. This is a 40% increase from 2011, and we should not have a situation where parents, no matter who they are, have to fight to protect their children going to and from school, and as well getting in school and being safe. We all know of Parkland. We all know of Santa Fe in my district. We all know of the mass murders. But do we know of the everyday, daily action of black boys shooting black boys? Do we know of the calmness in which it is done? Do we know the mothers, black mothers, who have bent over caskets? Do we know the stories that are chilling? This Hispanic sister who was a mother of 2 boys in my community who got into an altercation. The adrenaline and testosterone is rising, and they're going after the guy to go do their thing. And mom pleaded, oh, please don't go. Please don't go. They were packing, and they went on. And unfortunately, there's always a trick, is it not? You going after somebody, but there's a trick. And as you're packing and going after, XYZ is on the roof and guns you down in your tracks. That mother is burying 2 sons. And so I'd like to call upon the Black Women's Roundtable to join me in a major initiative of dealing with the plight of our children. They are impoverished. I know that that's been spoken of. Educational systems are being nickel and dime. Their support systems are only the state, because when the family becomes dysfunctional, there is no other step in, there's no other diversion. They go into the state system, and there are people who will witness to you what happens when I'm in the state system. Or the juvenile justice system, of which you go into that system and there is no sentence and you're there for a decade. So I am calling upon Black Women Roundtable to join me on several issues. I've indicated the trans issue, but I am going to initiate the Stop the Killing of Black Boys and Brown Boys. Stop the killing now. And not to be silenced, use my position on the Judiciary Committee to emphasize solutions of what kind of intervention. Mentoring is always good, but what kind of immediate emergency intervention? If someone wants to declare an emergency, let us declare an emergency on gun violence. Let us declare our own emergency on gun violence and the gun violence that happens with black boys. What it has been associated with now, and so people just throw up their hands. It's just the gangs. I, as a black woman, am not going to cede my young man to a resolution of complacency. It's just the gangs. The gangs are made up of young human beings who have been altered in their life from middle school, where we did not catch them, on to high school. And rather than finish, they get their degree in a coffin. I refuse to accept it. And so I am hoping to work with all of you on expanding, yes, our legislative fixes on the epidemic of gun violence, background checks, extended time for background checking, ammunition, all of that, the kind of ammunition that can be utilized so you're not having piercing bullets that will immediately implode and not give you a chance to live. But from the societal perspective, can you imagine if the voices of black women were out, as I finish, around the nation, standing and saying gun deaths and gun violence in our community for our young boys are no more? Can you imagine a day and all of us are somewhere out across the nation standing there, some unfortunately with mothers who have no sons to love because they have been lost, and then your legislators from across the nation, including your state legislators, in my dreams, of course, calling an emergency session to deal with the idea of gun violence, the interventions, the funding, and turn these young men into the fathers and husbands and boyfriends, scientists and lawyers and doctors and others that can give this genius not to the grave, but to America. I want to thank you, Chairwoman Campbell, for all that you have done. And I want to ask the question, what do we have to lose? I can give you a whole lot, but we're not going to answer that question. We're going to say the power is in us of what we have to gain. And Maya Angelou has said, show me who they are and believe who they are. Show us as we show you who black women are. And we will show you, and that is who we are. Thank you, Sister Maya. God bless all of you. Thank you.
Hold 1 second. I believe Sarah David Heidemann is here, Workplace Justice Legal Fellow, National Women's Law Center. Yeah, okay. I was wondering. I thought it was you. You standing there.
Can I do a quick PS? Somebody just told me just a PS. I'm going to do this separately, my sister. But I'm excited. This is all intertwined. I've introduced H.R. 40, that is the reparations bill. I am so grateful for my presidential nominees who have risen to the occasion and said this is not comedic, it is serious. It is a commission. Let no one joke at the coffee pot about H.R. 40. It is a long overdue study of the historic moment of our presence in this country from 1619 to 2019 at this point, which many of you know this year is the year of return. I am praying and hoping that this Congress will have a hearing and that we will be able to edify and educate persons on H.R. 40. I apologize. I yield to the gentlelady. Thank you so very much.
Would you yield for her? Because she was moved around. Yeah. Heidemann? Okay. You hear about eradicating violence against women, right?
Yes.
Yes.
That's great. Thank you very much.
I had you in another place. So.
Great. Good morning. My name is Sarah David Heidemann, and I send greetings from Fatima Goss Graves, the National Women's Law Center president and CEO. She is sorry that she couldn't be with you all this morning, but we are so proud to be here partnering with the Black Women's Roundtable, and I thank Melanie for inviting us to join with the other incredible organizations and honored guests here today. So, for those of you who don't know us, the National Women's Law Center has worked for more than 45 years to promote equality and opportunity for women and to ensure that all women, including and especially women of color, Black women, are guaranteed security, equality, and dignity in all aspects of their lives. We know that at its core, sexual harassment is an expression of power used to reinforce cultural norms about appropriate roles, behavior, and work for women and men, and to exert control over people with less power and status in society. Demands for sexual favors, humiliating comments, these are a way of enforcing and perpetuating sexist and racist power structures that value women, and especially Black women, less. That's why it is so important to fight sexual harassment and violence against women on all fronts, with policy, with litigation, with public education, and with organizing. We work on all of these fronts, including housing and administering the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund to help people who have experienced sexual harassment at work fight back. Since it launched on January 1st, 2018, we have received over 4,000 intakes from people coming forward to tell their story and look for help. And one of these intakes came from Malin DeVoe, a Black woman who worked as the head cook at a hotel in Philadelphia and was sexually harassed by the hotel's chief engineer. He repeatedly asked to date her, tried to bribe her with money and gifts, and stared at her body. She complained to the hotel's general manager, and they did nothing. And when she complained again, she was fired. We connected her to an attorney so that she could fight for justice. And when the Washington Post interviewed her about how it felt for her to fight back, she said, "I'm brave now. I'm brave." These stories and the untold numbers of stories we've heard in the last 17 months since Me Too went viral have confirmed that no workplace, from newsrooms to restaurant kitchens to factory floors, is immune from harassment. That's why we're so pleased to see that the Empower Act is on the table now. It will empower survivors and bystanders who have remained silent for so long out of fear to report harassment safely, and will help lift the veil of secrecy that has allowed harassers to escape accountability for their actions. We applaud the lead sponsors for this bipartisan, bicameral effort to make meaningful change. We commend especially the inclusion of all forms of discrimination and harassment in this bill. It is an incredibly important first step, and we look forward to further comprehensive policy reforms for Congress because everyone, especially and including Black women, deserve to work with safety, dignity, and respect. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Kristen Clark, President and Executive Director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. We've been on the front line fighting for civil rights for the past 55 years. I want to thank Melanie and the members of the 116th Congress for their hard work during these truly turbulent times. I want to say a brief word about the real national emergency that we face in this country, voter suppression. Voter suppression is alive and well, and we see it every single day across the country. An absentee ballot theft scheme in North Carolina's 9th Congressional District, a scheme so wild and brazen that the seat sits empty today and voters stand disenfranchised and constituents unserved. Efforts to purge the voter registration rolls in Texas, election officials blatantly lying about non-citizens on the rolls, an exact match scheme in Georgia to keep voters of color off the rolls. We're turning to the courts to fight back against these schemes to ensure that every vote counts in our democracy, but we, the people, have the power, and our most powerful weapon, the people's house. Now is the time to be vigilant, to watch for efforts to change the rules. Now is the time to speak up when we see voter suppression. Now is the time to hold corrupt election officials accountable when they take action to harm voters. The most powerful thing that we can do is to make sure that our voices are heard on Election Day. Not just every 4 years and not just for federal office, but every year, because there is no such thing as an off year. We need to show up and keep showing up every year for every ballot we can cast to vote at every level. City councils, school boards, DAs, state legislatures, special elections, congressional seats. All of these are incredibly powerful opportunities to make sure we are electing officials who will represent us. Right now on Capitol Hill, Wilbur Ross, the Secretary of Commerce, is testifying before Congress. Wilbur Ross is the one responsible for placing a dangerous 11th hour citizenship question on the 2020 census. Such a question hasn't appeared in more than 5 decades. Why is this dangerous? Because it's discriminatory. It would discourage people of color from participating because communities of color will not be fairly and fully counted, because communities of color would lose out on millions of dollars in federal funding. Ross, like other agitators, lied about why he wanted that question on the form, claiming it was necessary to enforce the Voting Rights Act. In reality, this administration hasn't brought a single case to protect voting rights, not one. We have. In November 2018, the Lawyers Committee and our allies sued Ross, and we won. Last week, a federal court found his actions unconstitutional, and this battle now moves to the Supreme Court. We urge the court to do the right thing by the American people and reject this discriminatory citizenship question. Americans deserve a fair census that captures an accurate and full count of the population. That's what the Constitution requires. Right now, at this moment in history, it's critical that we spread the word about how crucial the census is and that we do our part to make sure that everyone counts. While these are dark and turbulent times, together we have the power to make our democracy stronger every day. We must use our voices, our clipboards, our smartphones, and our ballots to speak out and resist injustice whenever and wherever we see it. Keep fighting. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask everyone to, because we have a hard 11 o'clock stop. So I'm going to ask everybody, please adhere. And if we do this right, we'll get through this agenda, and we won't have people standing here who are here, your colleagues and mine, who are here to bring their remarks. And so we will now hear from Lisa Kyler Barrett with the NACB Legal Defense Fund, Hillary Shelton, and then following them, we will hear around economic justice and economic opportunity leaders that are here. Carol Joyner, Carol Joyner, Director of Labor Project for Working Families, Family Values at Work. Tamika Ramsey, Convener, Metro Detroit Black Women's Roundtable, Owner and Lead Associate, T. Ramsey and Associates. Sarah David, oh no, she's spoken already. And I do believe, if I'm right, Lisa, is this someone that's here, Greta? Yeah. Okay, and Greta, I know we're out of place. You're here for Karma Kottman, Deputy Director Ujima, the National Center on Violence Against Women in Black Community. And then after that group, we'll call on our social justice and education leaders. And if we do this right, ladies, we won't get put off the premises. Thank you.
So good morning. And thank you, Melanie and the Black Women's Roundtable, for having this event and the opportunity to talk about voting rights. I'm going to talk really quick to try to get us through. Again, my name is Lisa Kyler Barrett. I'm actually the incoming policy director at the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund. Since its founding in 1940 by Thurgood Marshall, LDF has been a leader in the struggle to secure, protect, and advance voting rights for Black voters and other communities of color. This 116th Congress, we are happy to say, has brought greater focus on the issue of voting rights with the introduction of H.R. 4, the For the People Act of 2019, and the introduction, that's H.R. 1, and the introduction of H.R. 4, the Voting Rights Advancement Act. These important bills contain reforms that promise to strengthen our democracy, including restoring voting rights in federal elections to individuals with a criminal background, impacting upwards of 5 million Americans, and prohibiting the use of deceptive practices and preventing voter intimidation. For the 2018 midterm election, LDF was on the ground in several states, and what we saw on November 6, 2018, and in the weeks before and after, confirmed what we already knew, that discrimination against Black voters is an overwhelming and growing problem that demands immediate legislative action. Many of the most egregious practices were in Georgia, where the voting precincts were closed and over 500,000 people were purged from the voter rolls. These actions disproportionately affected Black and Latino voters. Georgia's exact match voter identification system was used to block approximately 53,000 voters from voting, over 70% of whom were voters of color. On Election Day, LDF witnessed and received reports of malfunctioning voting machines, long lines and wait times of over 3 hours, changes to precincts with insufficient notice, and an over-reliance on provisional ballots. So I just got the hook. I'm going to close and say that H.R. 4 and H.R. 1 are significant reforms to the voting rights, from foreign interference in elections to voter purges, intimidation, and strict ID laws. The fragility of our electoral system has been exposed, and the need for reforms has never been more pressing. Restoring the Voting Rights Act of 1965 to its full strength is critical to combat continuing efforts in America that suppress the unobstructed exercise of the right to vote in communities of color. Thank you so much.
Thank you and good morning. My name is Hillary Shelton. I'm the director of the NAACP's Washington Bureau and serve as Senior Vice President for Policy and Advocacy. The NAACP is honored and delighted to join our great friends at the Black Women's Roundtable for the fantastic work and leadership they provide on issues that are so important to the NAACP and the communities we serve. On behalf of the 500,000 card-carrying members, 2,200 membership units, and units in every state in the United States, as well as military bases in Italy, Germany, Korea, and Japan, we understand the cruciality of today. The issues you've heard about, from health care to criminal justice, from housing to education, and every other issue being discussed today is wrapped around in many ways the outcome of our U.S. Census. In essence, every 10 years, the United States actually counts who's there, because we learned some hard lessons at the NAACP as we move to manage the challenges of our day. That is, we're talking about the issues of criminal justice and racial profiling, whether we're addressing issues and concerns of home ownership and job placement, whether looking at small business ownership and other issues important to us in our communities, and whether or not we're being treated fairly and equally. Counting matters. What we've learned is that in order to manage the problems that are before us, many of you have heard already, many of you will be hearing about just after I'm done, we know you have to first measure them. And that means we need a fair, an accurate, we need a fully funded census to make sure that happens. That census will determine who will represent us, where the real power is. It will determine very well who indeed is getting jobs and who's not. Is fairness very much a part of the landscape as we think about the constitutional promise of equal protection and equal opportunity under law? The census will help us know just how things are working and that we indeed are able to elect representatives and senators that very well present our values as they come to places like Washington, D.C., our state legislatures, or even our city halls. So we thank you very much for coming out today to challenge the issues that we must begin to address, our friends and our coalition partners and our members of Congress, as we move forward to make sure we move forward the full agenda. And so on this Women's Day, we want to congratulate all those in leadership for what they're doing here, and we're just honored to join those that provide such extraordinary leadership for our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Carol Joyner with the Labor Project for Working Families and Family Values at Work, the network of 27 state coalitions moving paid family leave and paid sick days policies. And I'm joined today with my sister.
Hi, my name is Tamika Ramsey. I'm from the state of Michigan, convener of Black Women's Roundtable Metro Detroit.
Yeah, and we are here today because we work on some of the same issues, and we're talking about economic security for working people. Whether you're a man, a woman, an elderly person, a child, an infant, these type of policies are part of our infrastructure in this country, our infrastructure of caregiving. So I'm going to talk about paid family and medical leave. The Family Act, the Family and Medical Leave Insurance Act, has been introduced in the House. It is moving in the House. We've already had a hearing, and it's a critical bill to make sure that people have the time to care for their loved ones, to recognize the care that they need for themselves and be able to take it, and to welcome a new baby. And we want you not to be confused. Just the other day in the Senate, Republicans introduced a bill called something like the Cradle Act, and all it does is allow you to borrow money, basically raid your Social Security that you already have earned in order to take time off to care for a new baby. And we think that that doesn't go far enough. And we need Congress to stop tinkering with paid family and medical leave. We need real paid family and medical leave. We need the leave that allows you to care for yourself when you are sick. We need the leave that allows you to care for a sick family member, and the leave that allows you to welcome a new baby. 75% of the people in this country cannot use care to care for themselves or a sick family member, not to welcome a new baby. So join us and urge the Congress to support the Family Act, because that's the bill that we need. We're not tinkering around the edges. We need comprehensive paid family and medical leave in the U.S. Thank you.
So in the state of Michigan, earned paid sick time was on the ballot, and to circumvent the power of the people, our elected officials took it off. And then they voted and watered the bill down. This bill will allow people to be able to be sick, to take care of sick family members, and to take care of children. Just 2 weeks ago, my son, who works in the restaurant industry, had to choose between going to work and staying in the hospital to see his son being born. And he went to work, because if he does not work, he does not get paid. It was a hard decision for him to make, but he made it for his family. No person should have to leave their pregnant fiance in a hospital who is high risk to get paid for the day's work. We should be able to be home with our family, be in the hospital with our family, and our country and our elected officials need to understand that we are demanding this now.
Tamika, we need both. We need paid family and medical leave for that longer period of time, and we need paid sick days for short-term care. And we're urging Congress to make that happen.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Clint Odom. I'm the Executive Director of the National Urban League Washington Bureau, proud grandson of a black woman, business owner in the Jim Crow South, son of an HBCU graduate before the Brown versus Board of Education decision, the proud husband of an AKA, and the proud father of 2 college-age daughters. And I appreciate being here. The Black Women's Roundtable agenda is the agenda of the National Urban League. We've talked a little bit about the tax cuts that took place in December of 2017, a $1.5 trillion gift to some of the largest corporations in the United States. None of that money, or practically none of that money, went to working class families that the National Urban League represents. Tucked away in that bill, however, was a provision that encourages investment in our communities. It's called Opportunity Zones. This is a program that encourages investors to come into communities that are distressed, forgotten, forlorn, and get investment going in those areas. The Urban League supports this and thanks Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina for including this provision in an otherwise terrible tax bill. We're hoping that communities around the country, in every state in which we're represented, will have opportunity zones. And we're hoping that lawmakers and city council people and stakeholders in these communities will work to make sure that this program is implemented correctly, that it doesn't exacerbate gentrification, but in fact improves it. And it improves opportunities for African American and people of color owned businesses to do the kind of work in construction and renovation that is so desperately needed. These companies need a shot in the arm, and the opportunity zones represent an opportunity to do just that. So thank you for having us. And again, the National Urban League's economic agenda is the Black Women's Roundtable economic agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Greta Gardner from UJIMA, the National Center on Violence Against Women in the Black Community. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here. For the past 2 years, we've been working on the Violence Against Women Act reauthorization of 2019. Congresswoman Bass and Congressman Fitzpatrick have introduced a bipartisan Violence Against Women Reauthorization Act under House Bill 1585. The Violence Against Women Act has been fantastic, but more is needed, particularly for our women and girls. Black women are still almost 3 times as likely to be killed by their partners, and firearms are the weapon of choice. Black women ages 25 to 29 are 11 times more likely to be murdered while pregnant or their first year of childbirth. 35.5% of us experience some form of contact of sexual violence during our lifetime, and 40% of sex trafficking survivors in the U.S. are Black. The statistics are staggering, yet here we are, still suffering and still surviving. We can do better. We urge the House to pass the bipartisan House Bill 1585 and for the Senate to introduce a bill with the provisions of the House Bill 1585. We have modest additions. We want more investment in prevention, provide surrender and forfeiture protocols for firearms, housing, protect those who are dating from firearm homicide from their abusers, help survivors gain and maintain economic independence, and particularly we need more culturally specific programs. Improve the healthcare system's response and alternative justice measures because we know the criminal legal system is not working for us. Thank you for your commitment, and let's make history.
Thank you. Thank you. Our last 3 speakers on social justice around immigration reform. Ashley Allison, Executive Vice President, Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. Patrice S. Lawrence, National Policy and Advocacy Director, Undocu Black Network and they'll be speaking around immigration. Our last speaker for the day around education, and we know education is not the last issue we have, but it is right in line with everything here, investing in public education and HBCUs. And that will be from Felicia Davis, Director, HBCU Green Fund, and the convener of the Clayton County, Georgia, BWR. I want to also acknowledge a couple of our other conveners who are here. I think I saw Petey Talley, who's our convener of our Ohio Unity Coalition and co-chair for the Ohio Black Women's Roundtable. Letitia Daniels Jackson, who is one of our conveners for Dothan, Alabama Black Women's Roundtable. Have any other conveners here that I'm missing or states? And then we will be closing out. So in that order, Ashley, Patrice, and Felicia.
Thank you for letting me be here today on behalf of the Leadership Conference. I'm actually Ashley Allison, Executive Vice President for the Leadership Conference, which is a coalition of over 200 civil and human rights organizations. President Trump ran a campaign and has continued through his administration to attack immigrants who have black and brown skin. But this week, over 200 members of the House of Representatives introduced H.R. 6, the Dream and Promise Act. And while we don't know what the Senate will do with this bill, we must encourage the House to pass this legislation to protect immigrants. The president has done unconscionable acts to take hostage of families by separating them at the borders, detaining mothers, detaining families and children from one of themselves. He terminated DACA, TPS, the Temporary Protected Status, DED, the Deferred Enforcement Departure. He talked S S-hole countries. He's disrespected families, and particularly those with black and brown skin. So it is time for Congress to act. H.R. 6 is a bill to send him a message that we believe immigrants belong here. It is simple. It says if you've been here for a very long time and you are playing by the rules, you deserve to stay. So I ask that all people, including the Black Women's Roundtable, support H.R. 6 to protect dreamers, people with TPS, and DED. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Patrice Lawrence. I am the National Policy and Advocacy Director for a network known as the Undocu Black Network. We're a network of Black and undocumented people all across this country. The H.R. 6 the bill text came out this morning and it was released 2 days ago. We're in support of this as basically a measure to fix some of the things that have gone wrong in the past 2 years through no fault of our own. The DACA program was ended needlessly, as was TPS for 9 countries, the majority of which are black. And in addition, the DED program, a program that's been around since 1991 for Liberians. But we are fighting back. Collectively, we have been fighting back as young people, as older folks, and as those who might be in between. Just last week, we had a hearing in Judiciary that was on Dreamers, the TPS populations, and DED holders. The Undocu Black Network, along with African Communities Together and several other Black immigrant organizations, were happy to stand with Yata Kiazulu, a DED holder and a PhD candidate from UCLA, who has been in this country for 22 years, and in less than 20 days will have her work status and her immigration status expiring because of this administration. One more way that we're fighting back, in addition to her testimony in the House of Congress, is that we filed a lawsuit last week together with the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, African Communities Together, and 15 Liberian DED holders from across this country, telling the Trump administration that they don't have the right to play with our lives. We are happy to stand today with the Black Women's Roundtable, and we are very happy for all of the Black civil rights leaders who continue to stand up for justice and stand up for people like me. Thank you.
Good morning. As the final speaker for today's press conference, I want to first of all speak to the symbol for the Black Women's Roundtable. So when we started out, we were intergenerational, intersectional, and we dealt with environmental justice issues as social justice issues. And we are all anchored in the leadership that's developed at historically Black colleges, whether we attend one or we attend a predominantly white institution. Our HBCUs are our anchor institutions. They deserve support, and we we have to get our students and our institutions out of debt. So that is the framework that we work in. But when Melanie brought the Black Women's Roundtable back alive, affluence, power, togetherness, and unity, that is the symbol that she selected as the guiding sentiment for this organization. So we stand and we opened up with Shateria dying of an asthma attack in Mississippi. We have lead still in water in Michigan. We're based in this whole country in communities that have been impacted. We study those issues at historically Black colleges. We want to feed those institutions with children that are well educated in public schools, public community-based schools all across this nation. So I just stand forward today to really acknowledge the leadership assembled here from all across North, South, East, and West. We're here, we're present. We're going to make our presence known today, tomorrow, and the rest of the year. Black women, we are the power of the sister vote. We intend, we are way more than a hashtag. And we started out intergenerational, intersectional, where we eat, sleep, study, work, play, and pray. And we do a lot of the latter. Thank you so much.
And thank you for joining us, and thank you all so very much, and all the leaders. And though this is the start of our 8th annual Black Women's Roundtable Summit, we're going to be on Capitol Hill all day today and tomorrow. House today, the Senate tomorrow, and you can check us out. 2019 Black Women's Roundtable Summit. And we got a lot more to do in these next few days. We will be strategizing, organizing, doing a little self-care, and our hashtag is what? No? Power to Sister Vote is one of them. So thank you so very much for joining us.
We just ended our press conference. We'll keep y'all posted with further actions.